I've evolved so many times and changed. Like, I feel like I'm a different person now to what I was 3 years ago, to what I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I look at that young girl and don't recognise her. Pip is an extraordinary human, you know, and they've made me a better one. And they get me more than I understand myself. I'm like, how do you stop being so right about me? But it was really, really hard. I won't lie. The hardest thing I've ever done, hands down. But it seems so far to be the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Well, I like a glass of wine when I'm doing the cooking, don't I? Well, but you know, today I'm going to have a coffee because coffee's so good for you when you're really chatting like that, isn't it? But it was my first year without my kids, and it was the hardest Christmas I've ever experienced.
Natalie Bassingthwaighte, welcome back to the Stellar Podcast.
I feel right at home here now.
I know you should. It's you
great.
and me in studio.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time we sat down here was about 16 months ago, and
Was it that long?
it was November 2023.
Oh, far out. It doesn't feel that long.
And we're here first
Wow,
weekend
what a
of
whiz.
March
I love it.
2025. I know, can
I'm
you
so-
believe it?
yeah, I love it, love
and
it.
that was quite a moment, and certainly of my time of having the privilege of hosting this podcast, the absolute standout moment. So absolute delight to have you back here. You are a busy woman. You are in Shirley Valentine at the moment. It's been in Melbourne, really successful season there, about to open in Adelaide. Just before we went on air, I'm in Sydney. I was going, when's it coming to Sydney?
I know.
Nat, what about Brisbane? So it's obviously been a big hit. And of course, for anyone that's not familiar with the story, Shirley is a housewife who feels very much stuck in the humdrum of domestic life. She's wondering what happened to that young party girl I used to be. She unexpectedly gets an invitation to a holiday in Greece. It is about second chances and self-discovery and reinvention.
Yeah.
On paper, your life...
Are you talking about me?
I was just going to say, I should really clarify, because on paper, Nat Bass and Shirley Valentine, housewife, don't look like there's many parallels, but when we talk about some of those other things,
Yeah, 100%.
pretty close to home.
I actually, you know, and I've said it before, but I don't know if there's a woman alive that doesn't resonate with Shirley in one way or another, and I think that's why it's been so successful for many years. Obviously, it was a play in the 80s, then a film, and then, you know, now I'm lucky enough to play the role. But yeah, I definitely... The reason why I took it on was it resonated with me, you know, and I knew it would resonate with so many people. And like my director said, though, it's not just for women, because, you know, men see themselves in that character too, of where have I gone? What have I become? You know, what's my next 50 years looking like? Like what's all this about? You know, and I just thought that was so beautiful, the story.
It's so true, because we used to call it, when it was identified with men, you know, the midlife crisis, and that's become such an outdated term because, first of all, 40s, 50s, even 60s, people thinking that less midlife now than like a little pit stop somewhere around
100%.
maybe the end of like the first or second act. That's what we're starting to think about it. But you're so right. That's a story that can really resonate. Have there been times in your life where you've thought, as a teenager, as a young woman breaking out into the industry in your 20s, where you've thought, okay, it's time for me to have a bit of a reinvention, even if that's not necessarily the phrase that you'd use at the time?
Interestingly, I don't think I've realised that it's happened, but of course. I mean, I've evolved so many times and changed. Like, I feel like I'm a different person now to what I was 3 years ago, to what I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I look at that young girl and don't recognise her, you know, and it's exactly what Shirley says is, where's Shirley Valentine? And like, I look at that girl and I go, oh, I remember her. Totally don't want to go back there, just quietly. I'm really quite happy in my this life, this evolution of my life, and I resonate with her so much. But I don't think that there's a woman alive that wouldn't either.
I mean, I feel the same, and I know a lot of other women do. Something that Rebecca Gibney and I actually talked about when she was on the podcast recently.
Yeah.
I was saying how she seems a really great example of someone who life has genuinely just got better and better as she's gotten older. And I don't mean that in some rah, bumper sticker way, in a really profound way. And it sounds as though that's also something for you, when you look at your life journey, as you say, you're not looking back and wishing that you
Totally
could
not
wind
looking
back.
back. Like I have looked back recently to go, how did I get here? For sure. And why has my life turned on its head? You know, and I'm learning about that, and it's I'm figuring it out is the truth. You know, and one day maybe I'll get to tell that story. Yeah. So
Shirley Valentine is a one-woman show. No need to explain that. Everyone knows what that means. You're having a bad day, you're tired. How do you get match fit for a one-woman show?
You know, who knows? I mean, I think I figured it. I think I've figured out that I can do it. I was just wondering whether it was possible, but I'd already said yes. So too bad, right? You just have to make it happen. It's about putting the time and the energy into it and really being so familiar with the character, with the story, with the time and the place, and like it's really doing your homework and doing it for a long time. So I started like 3 months prior. I have a different accent, so I'm learning the accent, and then I play some other characters in the show. So I'm playing their accents. It kind of suits my crazy personality, I think. But it was really, really hard. I won't lie. The hardest thing I've ever done, hands down. But it seems so far to be the most rewarding thing I've ever done, because it is so challenging. And to get myself into that space when I'm just beside myself, you don't have a choice. It's like you are standing off that cliff and you're about to jump, and it's like, here you go. You're going to sink or swim and everyone's watching, you know. I have to take care of myself. I have to make sure that my health is in good nick, and, you know, didn't go to the gym at all, or Pilates, which is not like me at all, but it kind of suited the character, so that felt okay. And it was, a lot of the time was keeping quiet, because 2 hours of talking and crying and screaming and laughing and telling, like, it was demanding, and also to reflect, because the character dives into some things in her past that I resonated with, and that's exhausting. Like, you're constantly living her life, but there's this reflection of you in there, and it's very draining. So I don't know, just keep going.
And it's a good lesson in life, isn't it? That idea of, well, it's the old adage, the show must go on.
Yeah.
When there's absolutely no choice, you do rally and you muster and you pull it off, and then you're proving yourself on those times where there is that opportunity in life. All of us encounter. I think I could maybe just not show up here. When you don't have that choice, it teaches you that you can get through whatever you have to.
I mean, I'm a bit old school as well. Like, I believe you should go on, you know, unless you're like, there's something serious going on. You should just, you know, people have paid a lot of money to come and see you, and they're ready for that, you know. It's so hard, but it's rewarding. And yeah, taking it back to day in, day out, I felt there was debilitating fear in my body. You know, like, I felt like I was in the fetal position about a week before opening, going, I can't do it. I can't remember it. And, like, why would anyone write a story about, like, a perimenopausal woman, and then a perimenopausal woman is playing the role who can't remember what she was thinking about 2 seconds ago, let alone 40 pages of dialogue? I'm like, who does this?
When you come off stage after all of that, because as you've talked about, it's physically demanding, it's emotionally draining, and then you're getting this standing ovation. So it's the whole gamut of emotions. Yeah. Do you come off and fall in a heap, or do you think, great, what city am I in tonight? Let's head out for dinner.
No, I'm exhausted. I'm completely exhausted. I usually just, like, because you're on the entire time, and then you get this beautiful reward of this connection with the audience, you know, and then you go into your dressing room and I'm like, and the wig comes off and the makeup comes off, and I just honestly just want to jump into bed. Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about the accent. You were saying that's very demanding. Now, Shirley comes from Liverpool in the UK. Mm-hmm. You obviously are a singer, musician, so you have a good ear. We know that can really help when actors are learning an accent. Yeah. But have you done many accents in your career?
Not like this, no. Like, I've always been, I have got a good ear. Like, I've always been able to pick up, you know, the standard English, the standard American. But Liverpool, it threw me. The first lesson that I had with the incredible Jennifer White, who works with Heather Mitchell, and, like, she's phenomenal. I couldn't even say the word mother or boss. Like, my mouth didn't want to make those sounds, let alone the shapes. And so 2.5 months of working with her every week, and everything was hurting at first because it's like a new muscle as well. Like my tongue and my jaw and my neck, everything was hurting. And I'm like, can't do this. And it eventually she's like, you just got to be patient 1 minute. It's like learning a new skill. You're not going to get it the first day. And as a performer, you really want to get it the first day because you feel like you're never going to get it. But it came, and now I can just do it whenever, which is wild, right?
Oh, well, I was going to ask if you would say something, whether it's in character or just anything. Could be about, like, I haven't finished my coffee yet.
Right. Well, yes. Well, I like a glass of wine when I'm doing the cooking, don't I? Well, but, today I'm going to have a coffee because coffee's so good for you when you're really chatting like that, isn't it? Do you like it, Sarah? I love it. Oh, I love that. It's nice, isn't it?
Oh, it's so great. Look, I mean, I'm clearly answering in my own one boring Australian accent. I asked a little bit about reinvention before and wanted to talk, looking back over the course of your career. I mean, long before there was the phrase slushy. I don't know if they're still using that. I think
I won a Dolly Award for a slushy.
Did you?
Yeah, like 30 years ago or so. Yeah.
Well, that was fortuitous because that should really be upgraded, like from Dolly to maybe a Stellar Award for a slushy, I think, in 2025. Obviously, we have worked across music. We're just talking about theatre. Acting in film and television, you've hosted shows, you've been on shows as a participant on different shows. Is there I assume that there's a different part of yourself that you draw or tap into for each genre. Is that true? And what have you learned about yourself over the course of the last few decades in doing that?
I think I've realised that anything is possible, and I like a challenge. Clearly, I've always liked a challenge. I think life is for living and learning and challenging and being inspired and working with great people. And I don't know, I've never been shy of going, okay, and then go, oh, now how do you do it? Like, now what? And it's really exhilarating. And exhilarating to try new things and to see what you're capable of. I actually love what I do so much. And the more that I can experience life in completely different ways, the better for me. I'm that type of person.
I can't think of anything as an outside observer that you haven't tackled in terms of the possibilities of work. I mean, of course, there's always roles and projects.
I could be
in
a
terms
doctor.
of actual genre. That's right.
Yeah,
or
roles.
retrain as a lawyer. But is there something on the list or anything that is in the back of your mind that you haven't yet explored that you would like to?
This is my first one-woman play and my only second ever play in my life. So I've only done one play before.
Gosh,
but
you threw yourself in the deep end.
Oh my gosh, I've done obviously musicals and but just to be straight acting was, a challenge. I think I've always wanted to be in a movie musical, and I know that I just did Elvis, but I wasn't singing in that. I just played a tiny bit part or whatever, but like to be able to actually be the performer in the film would be wild. I'm one of those people that if someone presents a concept or an idea of my next job, like I really have to take my time more often than not. Like same with this play, it's like here's a one-woman play. I said no. How does anyone learn that much? I don't even know. Don't know what happened a second ago. No, but then when I read it, I was so moved by this story and the emotion of it, and I felt like there was a similarity in my life of going, and I couldn't say no. I said a lot of women, men, anyone who wants to play a role like this, to be given this opportunity. I couldn't turn it down.
I was going to ask about turning 50 this year. You're going to be turning 50 in September.
Yeah.
You and I have spoken before about that. Last time we spoke, you said the joy of getting older is that there's less pressure. I'm at a place where I feel confident with where I'm at and who I am. And also we're talking about one of the things that I really always love about you is you've always been very generous about talking about, yes, I'm conscious of being just first of all a woman, because most women are thinking about physical appearance. That's a downside of getting older. Not everyone feels that way, but I like you, I'm a really genuine believer in all the amazing things that come with the passing years, but we also know there
I
are
know
things
everything
with the
sucks.
skin.
It's how my skin is like, so everything's drooping a little bit lower than it ever did before.
You look amazing. You really do. And of course, you're on the cover of Stella today, so no one needs to take my word for it. I mean, Nat looks gorgeous as always. But I do love that you've been honest about that, because I think that's a bit of a tussle with all women, but especially for women in the public eye, because there's a fear of being judged if you are vulnerable about that's something that you think about, and if you don't think about it or don't talk about it, then everyone pretends.
There's never the right answer, right? There's never the right kind of space to be in. I just feel like as women supporting women, we need just to be honest, because that's what shares that kinship, you know, like there's nothing, and I might have said this last time, but they got to a space for me a few years ago where Instagram was just so, everyone was so beautiful and so fabulous and had so much money and their lives were perfect. And it still does that now, you know, but I switched off like everyone that no longer served me. Like I went through this big culling process so that it was just people who inspired me, and like I follow like poets and met like beautiful, you know, inspiring women, and like honestly I do, because then if I do get that, I just want to flick, which we all just, what's happening now? It's like, bang, here's some positive stuff. Here's like a beautiful, you know, quote or a poem, or I tend to get more of that stuff now because the algorithms, the way that they work.
That's right.
That's
a good hack. That's a really good tip.
It's like you're going to still do it because it's part of our society at the moment.
Course,
you know, you still kind of want to, like part of me wants to just get rid of it altogether, but it's really good for work and it's a part of our industry. But I just think it would be so much nicer if women were a bit more open and honest about their hardships and their, you know, life isn't perfect. And everyone who says their life is perfect, it doesn't mean that they're not having a great life, but they've had stuff. Everyone's got trauma and triggers, and, you know, and the more that we share in that community, I think the better, because it makes us feel better about ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you have any plans for your 50th birthday? I know it's still quite a few months away, so
Not
I
far.
mean to
I've
put
started
you on
to
the
plan.
spot.
No, I started to, like, I've changed so many times, but I was like, maybe I'll do 50 things before 50. And then when I started writing a list of things, I'm like, I've done that and I've done that. Like I've hot air ballooned, I've jumped out of I've bungee jumped. I mean, I haven't hot air ballooned. That's in a couple of weeks. I've jumped out of so I've done some scary stuff, and then I'm like, I've seen, you know, the pyramids, and I've traveled. So I was like, I've kind of done a lot of that stuff. The one thing that I'm definitely doing is my older sister and I and my nan, we're going to go down to a caravan park that we used to go to. And I was originally thinking maybe I'll just rent out the entire caravan park and just have all my friends and kids and be like that. Now I'm just going to make it my nan and my sister just for a night or two, because we used to go there as kids, and that just really feels, my nan's 92 now, and we used to travel around Australia with my nan in a caravan, and I think that's something that I definitely want to do. But I'm really kind of vibing on whether this happens or not. I'm trying to find the right space, and I've seen a couple at the moment of having a very intimate dinner of like just 8 of my best girlfriends who have been, you know, the ride or dies for 50 years or 40, 50 years. And then the next day having a beautiful picnic sort of thing with all my friends, all their partners, lots of kids running around, just playing games and dancing with barefoot in the grass.
That's
so
beautiful.
I want both. I want it all.
But exactly, it's a metaphor for life, and you should have it all, because it's that intimacy of that small group, but then having that big group as well. I mean, look, why not? A lot of people
I want to do yoga and cacao ceremonies
festivals.
and get on a horse and ride. So I kind of want a weekend of just, you know.
Maybe 50 ways to celebrate, and you could come up with all of these different things.
Watch this space. I'll tell you next time. We'll be like, babe, I just took it.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's surreal that I'm 50. Like I keep forgetting that's, you know, when I was 18, like 30 was so old, and now I'm nearly 50, but it's just such a joy. Like I've never felt so comfortable in my own skin and in my own space. And yeah, I'm probably happier than I've ever been, which is wild.
That's fantastic.
You know?
It's a great, and also what a year you will have had by then.
Yeah.
Hopefully by that point, Shirley Valentine will have toured the whole country.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about International Women's Day as well.
Yeah.
So yes, you have a birthday coming up in September, but actually at the end of this week, March 8, is International Women's Day. Now, that's always well, I would know, talking about social media, and in my former life as a columnist, I always had angry people, sometimes, sorry, don't get angry at me, men, but there was often a disproportionate number of angry men saying, why do we need International Women's Day? Where's the International Men's Day? Blah, 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 blah.
Make your own day.
I know, exactly. And in fact, they did. There is one somewhere on the calendar.
They deserve it too.
Absolutely they do. But I also think I would be happy if we didn't need it. But in my view, we don't still have equality. We don't have proper representation in the boardrooms, in power. We have a gender pay gap. The inequality can be even more entrenched among women of colour. And obviously there's different parts of the world where the disparity is absolutely horrifying. I mean, I've asked and answered the question, very obnoxious of me. No, really, all we only care about is your thought on that, Nat, the need for International Women's Day in 2025.
I love it. We need it more than ever, because even though there has been a lot of shifts, especially in my lifetime, you know, from the 80s to now, even like my teenage years, there's been so many, but there's always a way to go. There's always a way to stand up and be proud and have a voice and be heard. And we have such talented, brilliant-minded women and nurturing women. And like, I think that gets underestimated in the world of boardroom, in the world of politics, in the world of theatre, I mean, you know, film and television and producing and power and directing, and it's coming though, you know, like you see the Barbie movie, even though it's Barbie, but you know what I mean, like the first female director to be, like, all of that stuff is just crazy to me, but it's seeping through, you know, Reese Witherspoon having her production company and Jessica Alba having, and I'm talking about my industry, but seeing this happen, it's slow but it's happening. So I still think it's a chance to stand up and also not just, you know, complain and be down, but also celebrate what we've achieved in my lifetime so far and what there is to go. You know, we're not there yet. We're going to keep going until, I don't know, why not keep going forever, you know?
Absolutely.
There's so much more equality that needs to happen. There's so much more I think gratitude for one another in this space of being a woman and being proud of each other and supporting each other. So that's what I like to see for International Women's Day as well, is opening our hearts, our minds and our souls to be heard.
That's a really nice way to put it, I think, and so true, having a bit more gratitude for one another. And I think also it's because, as you say, you're talking about your industry, and that's really important because we all speak to our own industries, but your industry, of course, is also a huge cultural touchstone. It's about visibility and things like the Barbie movie and what we are seeing in theatre and the music that we're listening to, that has a huge cultural effect on everyone. Yeah. It shows everyone, especially young girls, what they could be, the opportunities you and I both would have been.
Even like sport women, you know,
look at
getting
the
that opportunity
and our female Olympians last
year.
So no, sorry, I know it's I'd like to think it's me, but it's just the light. So sport
I
is
think
a big that's
thing.
So important, that visibility, because that's also something that you would have observed and also been an active participant in, is helping shift the conversation around being grateful for one another, otherwise known sometimes as women supporting other women, and being reflective in a good way of how far we have come, but also not being shamed into not acknowledging that we still have a way to go. Yeah,
and that's okay.
Absolutely. We can be grateful and also want a little bit
absolutely. Give us more.
Nat, I wanted to ask you a little bit, another actually milestone, Rogue Traders, Voodoo Child. Do you know it's going to mark 20 years since it's released this May? I mean, we've just got milestones all over the place here. I mean, any plans with that?
Yeah, I think we're re-releasing the track, which is beautiful, you know, and just such a, full circle moment, you know, 20 years. Like, again, it just, when you even said that the last time we did a thing was 16 months ago, I'm like, really?
Yes.
20 years ago, there's so much that's happened in 20 years, but also it feels like yesterday. Time is such an interesting beast.
Oh my gosh, it is so true. And especially when you've got a lot going on as well, I think, like, because time accelerates.
Yeah.
And then especially...
That's why you've got to be in now. You've got to, like, hold this space so precious.
You do. It's really true. And I think also when you've got children, it also is a particular living, breathing clock, if you like. Every moment you see it, even if, again, you don't realise it at the moment, but I'm sure you, like me, have got moments where a child will, get out of bed, maybe at 2:00 in the afternoon and, have their 10th bowl of, Wheat Bix. Not sponsored by Wheat Bix, just saying, in my house I seem to be going through like 4 1-kilo
bowls
packets of
something.
Wheat Bix at the moment. But, that's also a reminder every day of how much time can pass
so quickly.
Where you're not even noticing.
So quickly. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that in the last, 2 years for sure.
And as you say, I mean, it doesn't feel like 16 months ago since you and I sat down, but I mean, I did the maths. I was like calculating.
Wow.
So I got to 16. I'm a journo, maths isn't my strong point. I really wanted to end our conversation today by revisiting some of that and just checking in. Now that we've established 16 months, I mean, we've talked about everything, like a lot's happened for you professionally, but of course, at the time that we were talking about you and your husband, Cam, had separated earlier that year, and we had a really lovely conversation, which I'd love to revisit, just about how the two of you had tackled co-parenting. And I don't even feel like the word co-parenting does justice for it. You were living in the same house for a while. And it's such a helpful conversation to so many of us. I'm in a similar situation. I think that amicable co-parenting is something that everyone aspires to, but to actually live it and hear about it is very rare. And I just would love to start by asking you about that side of things.
We're really good.
It's
not without being hard. It's of course, like I'm not sitting here going, oh, we're so great, it's amazing. We're pretty good, but very early on, like we decided to stay in the house for a while. So we only left our family home last April. I mean, I'm already in a relationship with someone and he's like, and it was really hard, but we did it for the kids because it was the right thing to do for them. And, we were just sort of tiptoeing around when that next time would be of okay, now they've adjusted to us not being together. They know mum's got a partner. That's the new thing. Now they know that we're going to move out of the house, and we just took our time with that. But also we met an amazing mediator, and originally someone had recommended this incredible woman, and for us we just wanted the kids to be okay. So we sat down with her and she had this whiteboard and she was like, tell me about your kids. And we're both sitting there going, okay. And we both talked together and individually about both our kids and, well, what do you want for them, like when they in 5 years' time? And we both said we want them to be happy and we want them to, be full of love and kindness. And do you want them to go to uni? Do you want them to? And we said we just want them to be happy, whatever that looks like for them. And then she said, great, well, for them to be that, you guys need to get on really well. And and it really shook both of us, I think, into going, obvious, but it's really shaped how we've parented and co-parented and supported one another through this phase as well. Like Cam's in a relationship and he's really happy, and the kids seeing us happy and communicating and, like us doing things all together, it's really good for them, and we're okay. It took a while, but we're okay. And if anyone is in the same boat, I totally recommend just being slow if you can. Not everyone can.
Of course.
But also it's about the kids, because we don't talk badly about each other in front of the kids. That's not fair. If we've got something to say, we'll talk about it between the two of us. Doesn't really happen anymore, we've really healed from that sort of space and we've moved through to a completely different one. But the kids need to know that if we're okay, it's almost like they've been gliding through it, you know what I mean? Because they're seeing mum and dad be okay and being okay with each other's new partners and what that looks like, and we can all talk about each other's situations and be excited. You know, how people are like, look at my new room and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. You know, I'm going with blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's a really nice place to be, but it definitely took a while.
Of course. I mean, and of course, and as you say, it's not like it's easy, because if it was, then everyone would do it. And we also wouldn't be the first generation that's navigating this terrain. You know, only really 20 years ago, it was still quite the norm for a lot of separations, especially when children were involved, to be very adversarial.
Yeah.
And again, I know you and I both want to acknowledge, of course, there are situations where that's completely understandable, but to have that intention with the children at the middle of it, and as you talk about that, writing things on the whiteboard with that mediator, as you say, it seems simple. We want our children to be happy, but I am also speaking from my own experience here. If that then sharpens the focus and that's what's guiding you, sometimes in life what sounds simple is just about refining what's actually important here.
Every step of the way, because they're going to be 20 soon, and 21 and 25, and they're going to have like really, serious relationships, and how we respect each other, Cam and I, like in our past relationship, what we did have together and what we have now. It's different, but that will shape their lives in a much more beautiful way, and their relationships moving forward. And that's what was important to us.
Absolutely. I mean, what a lesson that you have shared with them. I love that, whatever we're calling it now. Like I say, I call it co-parenting.
I call it co-parenting.
Whatever it is, I think it's the more we can talk about it, the better, I think.
The hardest thing I think about the co-parenting space for me has definitely been, like, this was the first Christmas we didn't have as a family. And even though we weren't together for a year or two before that, we still did Christmas together as that family unit. And it was time, we've both got new partners, but it was my first year without my kids, and it was the hardest Christmas I've ever experienced. And I was like, a therapist is like, you know what, it's okay. Like you tell the kids it's the month, and it's the month of Christmas, and you'll celebrate on different days. So I kept going, it's the month. And then one day I'd be like, hysterically crying. And then the next I'd be like, it's okay. Like, we'll do our own day. And it was really hard. It was harder than I thought it would be.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And not to be glib about it, but I imagine that going through that the first time will be the hardest, and then
I've done it. I'm good now.
That's the thing.
Well, next year this year they'll be with me, and then the following year they probably won't care about Christmas. So I feel like I've done the hard bit. And the blessing, though, again, from the therapist was like, all you want is for them to be okay. Because we're adults. We can handle being disappointed or upset or how hard it is. They had the best Christmas because they're with Cam's family in Melbourne for the first time in years, which they needed to do. And the fact that they're ringing me going, oh, my God, that's what I wanted to hear. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, and it's really hard. Right. Yeah. But it couldn't have gone better for them. And, again, that's all that matters.
You were driven by what you wanted for them. And, of course, yes. And I think also it's like those – it's not, growing pains isn't the right word, but every time that you're getting through something and you need to get to the other side of it, it can really hurt. That it's a little bit.
It's
like
the first.
Getting ready
Every
for
first
opening night,
is the hardest.
That's right.
And then once you've done it, you're like, okay, we did that. We're good now.
So you've done that, and that was a hard first out of the way. I haven't done that first yet, so I really feel every word of that.
Yeah.
And absolute admiration
first birthdays with
for you for coming out of that with their interests at heart. Like, I really do mean that.
Yeah, I did go to bed. I was crying. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like, I had a beautiful day with my partner, but I was quiet because I just Christmas is about your family, and like without them there, it just felt different. And I went to bed I just had to go to bed early and kind of cry and go, okay, I did it. It's okay. Yeah. They're okay. They had the best day. Yeah. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. No, good on you. I mean, I've had a few Christmases over the years where there's been tears. I think just because someone got into talking about Donald Trump or something.
Because of Christmas. I know. Let's be honest. Never quite works out how you think it's going to go.
Nat, amazing conversation, Nat, with you. I mean, I'm pulling up your quotes from last time. We spoke about you and Cam and the co-parenting and your two children. And then really took me by surprise because I didn't know about
Took me by surprise as well.
In the best possible way, took me by surprise. I hope for yourself as well, where, of course, you then opened up and you said, I'm in a beautiful relationship with a woman who makes my heart smile. and makes me really happy. You didn't identify your partner at the time, Pip. You've since shared a little bit of your relationship with Pip on your own platforms. But I really wanted to just end our conversation by going back to that moment, if you don't mind. It was, obviously it was a very profound moment for you more than anyone. Only you can speak to that. I know for me, I've used the word privilege, I think, twice in our conversation, but it was a privilege, like in the most.
I felt really comfortable, and that's the
sense.
truth. So you've always been so warm and welcoming. I think that's why people come on your show, babe.
Thank you, Nat. No,
I felt very safe in talking to you about it.
And then the response was really huge, and at so many levels. Again, I obviously didn't see everything, and you'll have your own observations, but it just felt so overwhelmingly positive. And I know even I was getting correspondence, so I can only imagine what you got from so many people that really felt seen, from so many women, from so many people in the LGBTQIA plus community. Yeah. How was that reaction for you over the months that followed?
Yeah, for the most part, it was quite astonishingly amazing. You know, it did take me by surprise. And I think what I've learned over this time is that I have so many queer friends. I've had many queer friends since I was very young, but I think I had internalized homophobia myself. So I was terrified about what people would say and think and feel. And you know, it still pops up every now and then, but that's just ingrained in growing up in a certain time when you weren't allowed to be, you know. So much support. I mean, even when I'm doing Shirley, I have women come up to me going, our story's the same as yours. Thank you so much. And I'm like, oh, okay, no worries. You know, like it's at the end of the day, it's just nice to be real and honest and not have fear around it. It doesn't mean I don't get scared sometimes, but that debilitating fear has gone. And it's beautiful. Like, I feel, you know, I feel heard, I feel safe, I feel connected. Pip is an extraordinary human, you know, and they've made me a better one. And they get me more than I understand myself. I'm like, how do you stop being so right about me? It's been the wildest time in my life, and it's beautiful.
How are they feeling about it then? Because obviously you have been in the spotlight for a very long time, and when you decided to go public about the relationship, I know that separate from anything that I was privy to, that obviously you were very mindful of bringing Pip into it, knowing that the whole scrutiny and exposure that they would be opened up to. How are they doing 16 months
and look, we probably need to explain why we're saying they, because they identify as non-binary. So they, them. Yeah, they're a shy human, you know, and I think the thought of it all was incredibly terrifying. At the time, we had, you know, photographers trying to find out where Pip lived and trying to get that first photograph of us, and they even went to another friend of mine's house and followed them for days, thinking that one of them was my partner, and it was really intrusive, you know. They would park the car out the front and they've got a little boy, and then they made this story up about that was my girlfriend, and that it was awful. But do you know what? They bought us some time because Pip was terrified, and they just said, we're happy to hold them at bay for you. Like this article wrote that this was my partner, and they didn't confirm or deny, but it just it gave us time to like go, oh my God, it's going to happen soon. They're going to, you know. But they even knocked on my door, my house, and I at the time was living on an acre and a half, so they came down the pathway and knocked on the door and said, you know, can you, and I said, you're not welcome in my home. This is my home. Please leave. And again, I think we were talking about this. There are kids involved in this story.
That's right.
This is more important than anyone. Don't hurt my children, no matter what. So look, that whole time was incredibly tough. We got through it. We're actually so fine now. It's just like, wow, again, it's like looking back and thinking how intense that was, and scary and debilitating and all of that. And now just to feel so happy and content. And, you know, there's a line in Shirley Valentine, and I think of Pip every night, and it says, you know, when you meet someone and they like you. They sort of approve of you. You start to grow again. You start to move in the right ways and say the right things at the right time. And I just think of Pip every time because that's exactly how they've made me feel. They've made me feel heard and loved, and they're the kindest human I've ever met. So,
Nat,
yeah,
that's so lovely. Well, I know I said to you at the time I was really happy for you, and
Thank you.
I'm so happy that feeling that you could speak your truth, as you described it at the time, has brought the lightness and the joy that it should.
Yeah, because that does cover up a lot of feelings, because you're just living in this anxiety space for a very long time, that you feel like there's love with this person, but you're also terrified to fully let go and be that vulnerable, you know. And now that all of that's gone, I can completely do that and be that, and I am that, you know.
That's fantastic. And also, what a great friend to allow themselves to be the sort of decoy, if you like, just to keep the pesky paps at bay. I mean,
they were so hard on them that they eventually they called me and said, we can't handle this anymore. And we were like, that's fine. Just tell them to go away and tell them that you're not the right person.
That's just wild. It has been so wonderful to speak to you. I hopefully will speak to you again later in the year, because I believe in all your spare time, when you're not touring the country, working on maybe another project, redoing Voodoo Child, having a beautiful relationship, 2 children, bit of a busy life. Yeah. You may be writing a memoir.
I know.
It's just a tiny little project.
Just a tiny little thing. The thing that's happened since meeting Pip is I remembered how much I used to read poetry and listen to music and be that woman with a big open heart. You know, I'd kind of shut her down for a long time, and I was asked a few years ago to write a memoir, and I was like, hell no, I don't want anyone knowing my deepest, darkest secrets. No way. And then since all of this and just rediscovering myself, not just in relationship with my girlfriend, but just myself, you know, like, who am I? Same as Shirley, like, who is this person? Where I used to be this person and she's coming back to life again. I don't want to be her, you know, I want to be right here where I'm at. And I went, I think I'm ready. And I've started, and it's been the wildest ride so far. I had to put it aside when I got Shirley, because I'm like, I can't learn 40 pages of dialogue and write a book at the same time and try and be a good parent.
And learn how to nail a Liverpool accent.
So I put it to the side for a minute, but now I know all the dialogue and I've performed the show. Yeah. Even yesterday, 2 days ago, I closed the show in Melbourne, and the next day I was that full inspiration, and I'm writing like there's no tomorrow, and I can't wait to share it because I've had a full life. It's been, there's probably more in there that people have no idea about, and that's what I mean. Like, life can be terrifying. Life can be full of fear. Life can shut you down, but it also can be beautiful and exciting. And, you know, like, I want to write something that when I read books, like the Gina Chick memoir is like beyond, you know, like I love a biography, but like all these women, like I love, you know, Glennon Doyle, and I love Brené Brown, and like all of these empowering women that have inspired me to tell my story and to tell it with vulnerability and strength. I'm ready for that.
Well, I'm ready for it too. I am ready to read it, so I cannot wait. Watch this space. All the best with everything that you have going on at the moment. Really lovely to have you back here in the Something to Talk About studio, Nat. And Shirley Valentine will open at Her Majesty's Theatre in Adelaide on the 1st of April for 8 performances only.
And Canberra.
There's
Canberra dates too.
And we will have details on Canberra in the show notes. And huge success again. It was genuinely a triumphant season in Melbourne. So, I mean, just get it to Sydney. And
all right, sister. I think they're trying to lock something in, so watch this space.
Thanks again, Nat.
Thank you.